With the file out the way. We're going to record. Hello, everyone. This is attorney Robin McCoy with Robin Legal, and we have our special guest today, attorney Ed Taylor. And this is Wednesday, June 2nd. So we are live streaming on YouTube and we're also on Zoom. We'll be recording this and sharing this on Facebook, Instagram. And so, Attorney Taylor, I know I've interviewed you before. You've been practicing how long before?
Over 20 years.
Or not? How long as an attorney?
About 22 years.
22 years. And what made you decide to become a lawyer?
Well, I thought I could make things better. I've always admired the legal profession. Has been our way of progressing. With Thurgood Marshall is one of my heroes. That Brown versus the Board of Education got equality, and so those kind of cases influenced me, and I thought that the legal profession would be a way for make it better for my peoples.
Okay, and you specialize, I know from looking at your bio, criminal defense and landlord-tenant, and you do expungements. And why do you have those specialties in particular?
Well, again, that's helping the downtrodden right now. Michigan just passed a law, which I think most states should, that you can get 3 felonies removed, and I believe it's an unlimited amount of misdemeanors after a certain amount of time. And these draconian laws that a person got a felony maybe when they were much younger, and it affect their life the rest of their life. So you can get you could get either 1 felony or 1 misdemeanor after 5 years. Now they loosened up that rule, and it's going to make a lot more people more employable and more versatile of what they can do in life, because felonies is a way that this country has in stifling your growth. Ex-cons, and some people, in fact, Detroit now, the box review a felony in some positions, they don't even have that on there. They don't want you to even consider that, because what a person did in the past should not follow them the rest of their life, I guess, unless they keep doing it.
Okay, yeah, so the old law was 1 felony, 2 misdemeanors, and now we have it where you can have 3 felonies, unlimited misdemeanors. There's still some felonies. If it's a life offense, it can't be expunged, or, if it's right now operating while intoxicated cannot be expunged. I know our office, we are flooded with calls with folks right now. We're trying to do the best we can to help them. We've also been trying to recruit other attorneys to start taking on expungements so that we can help people to redeem themselves. People have said that they are trying to get a job because they've been hindered by their criminal record, their criminal past, and or people have been hindered from advancing on their job. So why don't you look into the camera and tell the audience how have things been as far as the landlord-tenant cases during the pandemic?
Well, there's been a moratorium on it, so no one has been getting convicted, but I believe that's going to be over soon, and hopefully
evicted.
Yes, evicted.
So no one's been evicted.
Recently, they haven't been, but I think the moratorium should be over soon. And if the person has been living all these years, all these months for free, and they haven't saved up any money, they're going to probably be getting evicted soon. Or hopefully, they have programs to maybe let them down easily. I saw today, in fact, in Evanston, Illinois, they have $10 million grant is going to be like reparations. They're going to be given to Afro-American homeowners, $25,000 cash or $25,000 going toward buying a house. And that's the single most way you can pass wealth on to the next generation. I know that everybody's been talking about Tulsa and this thriving Black community, that before integration, people had to depend on each other. Black people had to deal with each other, because the racist people in Tulsa didn't want black people to go in their stores and stuff. So black people developed their own stores, and then white people started using their stores. And I think because of envy and jealousy, they burned it down because they were doing too well. They were too good for their own good, too prosperous.
Right. And then for the landlord tenant, do you typically represent landlords or tenants, or do you represent both?
I represent both. Usually I represent the landlord. Now, usually now, unless a person has been really wronged, I usually, most of the time, it's the landlord is the one that has the problem, that has the ability to pay. Now, I've had a couple of tenants, they had like sewage in their basement and stuff, and the landlord was still trying to get rent. My, and I get this from Judge Judy, it says if you don't like the steak, you should, after you eat the steak, you got to pay for it. People stay in these substandard housing for 4 or 5 months, and then come to court and say they shouldn't have to pay, but they stayed there. If it's that bad, they should move. And I know that's not always easy to do, but that would be my suggestion to a person. If your environment is that bad and it's uninhabitable, or somebody's dealing drugs, or if it's dangerous, I mean, you go to court with that kind of background, usually the judges will be reasonable and they will understand that if your family, you and your family is in harm's way, anybody with a lick of sense would move out of the danger.
Okay, and then I know you did reference the Tulsa massacre, which there have been events commemorating the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa massacre, which occurred in 1921, going from May 31st to June 1st. I know you and I have watched some of the footage that they've had about the massacre, and there was a documentary with Tremaine Lee that was on. And basically, it's my understanding is that it started, there was a 19-year-old young man on the elevator with a 17-year-old white female, and something happened, and the prosecutors, police were called in, and there was allegations that he did something inappropriate with her. Then some folks have said that maybe they were in a relationship, and I don't know, but there was something that happened, and there was a decision not to prosecute, or she didn't want to go forward with the prosecution. And then what they reported is that there were about 1,000 white men that showed up at the courthouse to come after this young African-American man. And then there were, I think that some reports said about up to 19, 20 African-American males there to protect the young black man. And then, they've tried to call it a riot, but it was really a massacre. There were thousands of black businesses that were thriving. And basically there was altercation between the white mob and the black folks that were trying to defend their town. And then they had bombs, there were bombs dropped on this thriving black community. I know in the news, they've made reports about other thriving black communities that also had situations where there were massacres that occurred, that they had KKK folks coming out and trying to destroy the black businesses. Elaine, Arkansas. I know you have family in Arkansas, as do I. And, so that you had these situations where black folks were not able to go to white establishments, and we had to build ourselves up. There's always this discussion about us building ourselves up by our bootstraps. And here you have communities where we were building ourselves up, and there were jealous white folk coming in and trying to destroy everything that we had. And it happened 100 years ago, but here we are now in modern day era, where you still have hostility from, if you will, from some racist police officers and some white folks that have harassed black folks who are minding their own business, walking down the street, trying to have a picnic, trying to walk in a hotel, if you will. And so what can you tell the audience about your reflections on what happened in the past and then what's happening today?
Well, you touched on Elaine, Arkansas, in which I kind of know a little bit about it. The people that came from the black guys came from World War II. I'm sorry, 1917, 13 to 17. They came back and they wanted to establish the white people in the area were cheating them. You know, the company store, they would charge you twice as much for your seeds and your food, and it's always being in debt. And so they cheated the people, and they were giving them less for their cotton and whatever else they were growing. So a few gentlemen got together and they said, we're going to make our own union and we're going to demand our own prices. Well, the sheriff came down there basically and said, hey, you guys are trying to be independent. You're not going to let us screw you around anymore. And they were trying to intimidate the black farmers into selling their cotton for cheaper. And some kind of way, I believe a sheriff came down there and he got shot. The same thing in Tulsa when a black man attempts to defend himself. Sometimes that's how the altercation starts. I understand that I believe a sheriff tried to take a gun from one of the gentlemen there, one of the farmers, and he inadvertently got shot, and that's how it started. And so once it started, the police, which was the government, they went deputized all the different people. The Ku Klux Klan and the police at some time were the same people.
Okay.
Like Mississippi burning, you know, where Reagan went in Philadelphia, Mississippi, where Emmett Till, the three civil rights workers were murdered. This is what's called a Southern tragedy, and that's what Reagan went down to Mississippi after he declared he's going to run for president, and he basically was telling the people, I agree with what you did by letting these people come in and meddling you, riling up your black folk. And that's basically my impression of what he did. Out of all the places he could go, he went to Philadelphia, Mississippi. So basically, after then, the Republican Party, as of today, they are, how would I put it? They're trying to recruit and nurture this right-wing fervor. And what happens, whenever zealous right-wing people see black people being successful and they're not successful, or sometimes they're in competition with them, they do underhanded stuff to cheat them. And that's why if your forefathers were enslaved, they didn't pass anything over generations. That's why the arguments for reparations. You got, I think white people have like 10 times more wealth than black people, maybe more than that today. And there's a reason for that. And most people will look at a few successful black people. They say, well, look at him, like Oprah Winfrey or Michael Jordan. And why can't everybody be like that? Those people are thinner than hen's teeth. There's not that many people like that. The vast majority of people are going to be in poverty. And if they don't get some kind of, how would I put it? Some kind of uplift or give them some boots to put on, they're going to end up that way.
Okay, because yeah, I mean, I know in my family on the McCoy side, my fifth generation grandfather was a slave, was freed at the age of 13, and you know, there's a homestead in North Carolina, which I do hope that you and I often prior to the pandemic would travel to historical sites, Black historical sites, and museums. And so I am hoping that we do get an opportunity to travel to that homestead, the McCoy homestead, and in Arkansas, the McCoy side, they were sharecroppers, and they made the decision because they were having a rough time down south to move up north, like a lot of Black folks did, to get a better opportunity. And I know that you're always talking about the book, Warmth of Another Sun, and how that's a major book that everybody should be reading. And I did put it on my audibles. I'm currently reading Susan Rice's book, Tough Love, so it'll have to be next in line. But why do you think that book, Warmth of Another Sun, is such an important book that people should be reading or listening to at this juncture?
Okay, Charles Blow, he went to Grambling. I went to Grambling for a minute too. But anyway, he says everybody should move back down south that were terrorized in the earlier part of the century, that went away. People were terrorized. My mom is from Arkansas, Emerson, Arkansas. My dad is from Haynesville, Louisiana. You know, Arkansas sits on top of Louisiana. As soon as they got married, they moved to California, where I was born. And
Okay.
so the reason they moved out there was to get away from the terrorism that was going on down south. Now, Louisiana and Arkansas is not that bad. In fact, my family on both sides of my family had land there. And on my mother's side, I recently found out it was a trust over 100,000, but because nobody knew about it, and I think 1972, we lost about 75 acres. And most of the stuff is air property. Like I got like 300 acres in northern Louisiana, I'm an heir to. And it's about maybe a lot of timber. You know, timber has went up 3 times since the pandemic. So that's a variable resource. And so if you got air property, it belongs to everybody. And so many times because of how Black people have been treated in here, sometimes in some families, they're not being able to trust. Even your own family will be backstabbing you and doing bad stuff. The only way that you're going to really be successful in my eyesight in this country is for the families to stick together and do things. Like on my father's side, now we have this resource there and we're trying to figure out who we're going to get. They got drones to go up and tell how much the property's worth and how many trees and what have you, but we haven't decided on who we're going to get to do that. Louisiana is different. They have different laws, Napoleonic laws. So the rest of the states are different, but they have parishes down there and they have different laws. Now, my mom died a few years ago, so a state's got to be open for her, and and all the assets should be distributed. But if you don't
Equally, because
equally,
that's
yes,
the way. I know that's what my father and I, attorney Robert McCoy, we do estate planning, and that's what we often talk about. I know they said Aretha Franklin didn't have a will, but that's what we often encourage people to have a will, to do a durable power of attorney for health and finances. And the importance of having a will would be to have where the parent says, okay, I'm going to leave the property to my children to be divided equally. And the goal for the will is to have it where a family comes together and makes equitable decisions about how property is distributed, as opposed to folks having lone wolves going out there and doing things improperly. And then my dad does have to, and our firm, we do have to come in sometimes, and when there's a mess, when somebody goes, when family is fighting and try to quell the dispute. And also, I've interviewed previously attorney Terrence Quinn, who is also an expert on estate planning, who shout out to Terrence and Adrian, his wife, who is also his office manager. But that's why we often encourage Black folks to go out there and get wills, durable power of attorneys for health and finances, to make sure everything is try to make things as smooth as possible for us as a people. We already have to combat racism, and then it's like we want to avoid as much as possible conflict within our families, because I, as a McCoy, my grandfather was a Pentecostal minister, and he very much stressed the importance of family coming together, and if there's drama, come and talk about it, work it out, and as opposed to going and having courts and all this drama, because you end up giving thousands of dollars to lawyers to fight. Just like with family law cases, people end up spending thousands of dollars money for family law attorneys, when it's better if they can just work things out. It's better for the kids and things like that. That's why I always encourage people, work it out, because it's just better for everybody in the long run. For the children, the money you spend fighting each other could be spent helping your kids go to college and thriving and things like that. And so so I know that you are going to be going out to Arkansas to visit with family and look at those items, the property issues. And I want to ask you, I want to pivot right now for the audience. What do you think about the current state of play as far as the Biden administration? I know we're 6 months in. You and I are campaigned, and we're very supportive of the Biden-Harris administration. What do you think Biden and Harris have been doing well? And then what do you think are some areas where there needs to be some improvement?
well, I think for the most part, I think they're doing a good job, like the vast majority of the country. I think he has a 62% approval rating.
Right.
The problem is the filibuster. The filibuster was put in, I think, in the early 60s or late 50s, I think, as a way for the Southern Democrats to control the narrative. And that's what they're doing today. He wants to do all this big picture, broadband, freeway, the whole infrastructure of the country is breaking down. We used to have the envy of the world, our freeways, bridges, roads, and bars and docks. But today, all our stuff is, much of it is in disrepair. I looked at a bridge the other day that goes from West Memphis, Arkansas into Memphis, and it's got a crack in it. Now, I don't know if they're rerouting the traffic or what, but it's a hairline crack. So who knows? And these big, heavy 18 wheelers go across there all the time. So I don't know if they can repair that without doing the whole thing or not. And I know that we're building a bridge to Canada, which should have been a long time. You know, we have 1/4 of the commerce between Detroit, United States and Canada comes through here. If a terrorist attacked the bridge here, that would stifle everything. Now, at least we will have an option. And so, for the most part, I think the Republicans are trying to stifle Biden because they don't want him to do that well. Because if he comes in and really get everything across, then we're going to have more Democrats and independents elected and fewer Republicans. The way I look at it now, all the Republicans are a party of no. They don't have any ideas. They were supposed to have been, well, they know how to cut taxes for the rich. They're supposed to be Obamacare. They haven't had anything close to it. They're supposed to have had an infrastructure plan. I'm glad for thank God that Biden came in. When the last administration came in, everything was in disarray to me. People were dying. Now everything seems to be under control. I guarantee you, I don't believe if Trump would have been reelected, we would have things together. It's just like overnight, Biden came in and got stuff organized and was like a team, and he was the coach. Trump was basically saying, hey, you guys are on your own. And that's why everything was screwed up. I believe if Obama would have been in, or Biden, I don't believe, they said 100,000 the most we should have lost. And I think if we had the pandemic team over in China, we would have knew more about it. But Trump said he didn't want people working, getting paid for doing nothing. And so he fired all these people and everything got in disarray. And that's why he lost.
Okay.
And for people to still think he won, I think it's ridiculous. He lost by 8 or 9 million votes. I could see if it was close, like Hillary or Gore, those elections were very close.
Okay.
He got blown out. So I don't know why. When he beat Hillary by a small margin, she wasn't complaining. She conceded and went on with it.
Okay. And then can you talk to our younger folk in the audience? I do have some young guests. We're getting rejuvenated with Robin Legal. We're going to be bringing in Desmond Robinson. Shout out to Desmond, who's a grad student and an activist. And we've got Camille Tynes, who's a youth advocate and who's on her way to law school, and Minister Troy Muhammad with the Nation of Islam. So for the younger folk out there, can you tell them, because people right now, we're still in the midst of the pandemic. It looks like we are starting to come out of it, but young folks have been suffering. I mean, everybody, there's a lot of folks that have been suffering, but what message can you give to the young folk as far as hope and just how they can just deal with everyday struggles, food, clothing, shelter, employment, education in the midst of this pandemic?
Well, I think education is the key. You have to focus, and you got to apply yourself. And if you want to be successful, one of the few ways, and everything is not in the college, you can get a skill, be a plumber or engineer, and electrician. I seen Jalen Rose today, and I indicated to him that I'd be happy to come over career day. He's like, what's his name? LeBron. He has his own school, Jalen Rose Academy, and it goes like from 9 to 5, I believe, and they have all these extracurricular activities going on there. And he really, that's probably what's going to happen. people that have the wherewithal to help, they got to give something back. And the kids that graduate from over there, most of them have scholarships, and most of them are going to college or going into different fields. So, there's no formula that everybody is going to be successful in. You just have to find your niche and learn how to be good at it. And you have to be unrelenting trying to do it.
Right. And I do, I have I have my programs that typically I go out, and I've had you come out on what to do and stop by the police, where we go out and we educate, we bring in the police, the prosecutors, judges, ourselves, and come out and educate kids on what to do and stop by the police. And we've been doing virtually expungement. I've made videos on what to do and stop by the police. And then my newest baby has been Pathways to Law School, where since we haven't been able to physically go so much in the schools, but I am hopeful that we will start to get back to going physically out there, engaging with the young people, because I think it makes so much of a difference for them to see Black attorneys such as ourselves. I'm a visual learner, and I also teach. I teach a class. I'm a professor and teach a class at EMU on law and African American experience. And I think it makes such a difference, like for me, to see somebody that looks like me. Like when I went to predominantly white Catholic school, but I had a track coach, Richard and Cheryl Chenault, and they were Christian and they were role models for me. It made such a difference for me to see Black professionals out there. My parents, my mom is a retired nurse, my dad is a lawyer. It just makes such a difference for folks to see. And not everybody has that either. Not everybody has in their family. So it's like, it's weird. It's a village. We are an extended family. For folks to see us as lawyers, I mean, it wasn't easy for us to become lawyers. Only 5% of lawyers are Black. But and our population is 14%, maybe more. I don't know if we have to get a real census out there. But I think it just makes a world of difference for people to see Black doctors, lawyers, teachers. I know you have a background you were a social worker, and then you were a high school teacher, and then you became a lawyer. And I know you majored in history in college. And what made you decide to major in history?
Again, I was fascinated about the American history, about what went on here. And the one underlying theme in this country is fairness. The country, America, democracy is one man, one vote. That's what the whole facade allegedly is going on. But then you have these Republican people trying to keep people from voting. Look like you would want people to vote. They had sold to the polls before you go to church, you go to vote now, you can't vote till 1 o'clock. All these different laws are put in place, and this is what's going on. You don't have to shave but a few votes, because there are the people that vote on the right and there's people that vote on the left. And it's sometimes because of gerrymandering. Like Michigan is probably 60% Democrat. Obama won here, but in the legislature, I think it's 60% a Republican. Now, how is that? And that's called gerrymandered. Some of these different districts are made like a snake, and what it does is dilute minority power. They have tried to put all the Black people in one vote, and you get that, and then that's all you get. It's like Charleston, South Carolina, where John, what's his name? The representative?
John Lewis?
No.
Oh.
No. The whip. Anyway, John, he's my frat brother too. He's gonna get me. But anyway, his state is about 30% Black, but they only have one representative.
Oh, you mean the one that gave the nod to Biden, that helped
correct.
him to,
yes, exactly.
If it wasn't for him.
I know Joe. Yes, he basically, what did he crowned Joe, because Joe was in hot water before the gentleman nominated him.
Okay. And then, so I also want you to tell the audience I know you are presently in Facebook jail, and
Yeah.
why? And I know it was your oh, are you talking about I'm looking it up, Jim Clyburn?
Jim, yes, right.
Oh,
Jim
okay.
Clyburn.
That
Yes,
so
when you say that, if you say a certain thing on social media, they'll say the community services say you hate speech. I basically was
yeah,
being
let's
such.
tell the audience, because you said you've been in Facebook jail
Yeah,
5 times, and
yeah,
I'm
but
just
I
like,
mean,
no, I mean, I do. I will say I am telling folks, young folk, be careful what you do on social media. Treat it like a radio show, a podcast, because there are employers out there. Don't be using any drugs or doing any illegal activity. Don't be doing illegal stuff anyway, but definitely don't be doing it on social media, because it's not just you on here, it's the government is on here too. But tell us, how did you end up
well,
5 times in Facebook jail?
well, the last time, and I don't really remember the other ones, but anyway, the a gentleman, a congressman, I don't know even where he was from. I think Georgia, whatever. He was a Republican. He was saying that these guys were tourists, and then they showed a picture of him cowering behind the security. Now, then I said, well, here the tourists came to the Capitol on January 6th to hang Mike Pence. And that's what I put. I was being sarcastic. That's what they said. They said, oh, well, that's hate speech. We're going to punish you. So it's almost like you being censored. And I guess there's no way that they can tell if a person is being sarcastic or not. Now, I didn't say anything about hanging Mike Pence. I was saying the tourists said hang Mike Pence, but they picked on hang Mike Pence. And so they said, well, that's hate speech. And I basically was being sarcastic. And what I saw on Facebook.
So it sounds to me, for the audience, that's like that. I know Facebook is supposed to be working on the algorithms and everything, but like that they need to have better fact checkers as to what are credible threats, because you and I know right now it's spring, it's coming into summer. Folks have been cooped up, so you got some folks that need, some clients of ours that need some mental health issues, and you got some folks that haven't had the right supports, and so it's just pandemonium out there. And but I was surprised, yeah, when I heard that you have been in Facebook jail, because just knowing you, I've known you for a number of years. You're a Black historian, a griot. You have a lot of knowledge to give to the younger people, the younger generation, and for you to be censored in that way, I was just surprised.
Well, especially what I said. I didn't actually go say, and you told me maybe I should have put it in quotes or something, because I really was not trying to tell anybody to hang Mike Pence. What I find interesting about that, though, that particular issue, now, when Hillary was in power, 4 people in Benghazi were killed. They brought her there for 12 hours, maybe spent $30 million. They wanted to go and get to the bottom of this. Now, over here, January the 6th, let's move on. That's a bunch of crap. Now, they do not want, now, this is what Mitch McConnell said. Mitch McConnell says a personal favor for him, he don't want anybody to vote for that issue, because they know that Trump initiated it. They know that because he came out in front of Congress after it happened, and so did McCarthy. Now, both of them, McCarthy down there done forgiving Trump, he's with him. Now, Trump always dogging Mitch McConnell. So Mitch McConnell said, what do you think about that? I'm gonna stay razor focused on Joe Biden and all these social programs. He will not confront Trump because he knows that Trump is trying to depose him. Actually, Trump is trying to take over, he has taken over the Republican Party. I heard a gentleman the other day talking about
wait, Trump, you said Trump is trying to depose him. You mean
Mitch McConnell? He's trying to take over the whole Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell allegedly runs the Senate, and he's supposed to be the leader of the opposition. But recently, because of Trump is throwing shade at Mitch McConnell, and he's basically taking all the money now. So it's almost like he is the part of the Republican. He's the leader now. And I heard some Myanmar, they had a coup, and the guy gonna tell
Myanmar.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. They're gonna have a coup, and Michael Flynn said that that's a great idea. Now this guy, the one got up there talking about what did they say about Hillary? Lock her up.
Yeah.
And he's the one doing all this criminal stuff, and he's still free. And Roger Stone lied on the stand. He did all kind of stuff, and he's still walking around free too. Now,
and that's, I think the issue is you and I are criminal defense attorneys, and we have clients that commit wrongs, and if they do wrong, we say, okay, you need to atone, we need to work out a resolution. Stay, if you do wrong, make sure we try to work out the best resolution for the client, but atone for your sins and sin no more. And it's disproportionately Black, brown, and working class white folk. But then when you have these, some of these white men in positions of power that are doing wrong, they get pardoned and they're flagrant. It's just like the Tulsa massacre. You have white folk, and we're not talking about all white folk. We know there are good white folk out there. It's just like in every culture, but it's like, but in America, and it's like the world stage looks at us. We talk about right and wrong. We talk about, you and I are biblical people, but there's just it's a hypocrisy going on. We tell our children, if you do wrong, then you need to stop your behavior. But you have some white folk, white men, more white men than anything, that are out there doing wrong, and they're just getting away with it. And it's just the January 6th insurrection, for example. That's just crazy that people, and you can just get away with stuff. And I mean, I love America. My ancestors built this country. I'm waiting for my reparations. Okay. I don't want America to fail. I want America to succeed, because it's like we're on a ship, and we want this ship to do well, because it's not like we're on the outside looking in and we can be like, oh, I feel bad about, oh my gosh, America is having all these problems. We own the ship. We want the ship to right itself. We want everybody to be corrected, everything to go well, because we want America to be successful. Because it's not just, Martin Luther King said, what affects one of us, one of us indirectly affects all of us. What affects one of us directly affects all of us indirectly. And that's how America is. We love America. We want America to do well. But it's like, if you do wrong, then there needs to be correction. And there are folks out there that are getting away with stuff, and it's just it's not right. You tell the kids, we have to represent kids, Black, brown, white, Hispanic, all of that, and we tell them, if you do wrong, you need to atone. But America needs to have consistency on that.
And everybody saw what Trump did on January 6th. He invited the people there by social media, had them all there, and then he told them to go visit the Capitol, and he'd be there right with them, and which he didn't go. But then after it was quelled, then he said they go home. Well, only reason he was able to go home, they were able, by the grace of God, to get all the representatives out. If that one security guard that didn't lead them away, they could have went there and got Prince and Pence and maybe some of the other Congress people there and hung them. They had the gallows there. It was a full-fledged coup. And Trump is still walking around playing golf. Everybody saw him on TV telling those people, growling them up, Giuliani, let's have combat. This other guy from Alabama, wherever he's from, let's go kick some ass. That's basically everybody was, and Don Jr., all of them. It's just like Tulsa 2000 and January 6th and 1921. When people do such heinous, cruel stuff, they try to hide it. And I used to teach school, and I met a young lady. She was from Tulsa. She was a music teacher. Her name escapes me now, but she was from Tulsa. And, by me being a historian, I knew about this many, many years ago. They said it was the first time America had been bombed. So anyway, she was from Tulsa, and she didn't know anything about it. That's how quiet they made it. And they threw bombs down, and what is it, 10,000 houses? 10,000 people were left, 35 square blocks was just a bit obliterated. And then they're going to put a freeway through there, much like they did here, the force of least resistance. Hastings, Detroit had a thriving Black bottom. They put Hastings, 9th Street in Little Rock. Everywhere you go, if you see the prosperous, during segregation, Black people had to depend on each other. And so in order, when we had this urban renewal, they came through and put the freeways out there. And what people don't understand.
Urban renewal, some people call it Negro removal, but that's a whole another story. I'm sorry, go ahead. What were you saying?
After World War II, the GI Bill allowed soldiers to go to school, educated, and also to buy a house. Well, Bill O'Reilly said his dad built himself up from the bootstraps. They were poor, and then they moved to the suburbs. What Bill O'Reilly failed to say, that the black people that he was living with in New York at the time, they were not allowing them to move to the suburbs. It was segregated. They had covenants in some of the, even here in Detroit, they had covenants, one of the most liberal cities it was at one time. They had covenants saying you cannot sell to a black person. And so you had the black people relegated to this small area, and it just burst open one day. They got tired of the cops coming down there harassing them. And if you harass anybody enough, it's going to blow up. Same thing in Watts. Anytime that you see a riot, usually the way it happened is the police are harassing black people for the most part. You never see no spontaneous riot where people just start stealing. That doesn't happen. Like Michael Brown was down in St. Louis, or Rodney King in LA, or in Detroit. I think somebody came into a blind pig, and stuff just went from there. But if it was not for the harassment and racism, it probably wouldn't have been like that.
Right. And I think it's important. That's why I know there's been discussions about critical race theory. We need to have it from preschool all the way up until college. I mean, if not everybody goes to college, vocational school, we need to have the knowledge. I'm not, I've heard about some of the materials out there that try to make kids feel bad, or white kids feel bad. I mean, I don't like, you're a racist. Okay, I don't know about all that. I don't necessarily agree that you need to tell people, oh, you're a racist, classist, sexist, but you need to know, we need to know the history of this country, racism, classism, sexism as a collective, because it's incumbent on all of us to come together. Knowledge is power. It's incumbent on us. Hosea 4:6 says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. We all need to come together. God has brought all of us, different colors, races, ages, religion, a bouquet. He made this bouquet. You on a ship, everybody has a role. If you want the ship to right itself and do well, it's incumbent on all of us to have that knowledge of what has happened in the past, so that we do not repeat it, so that we can come into a new awakening. I attend a Unity church and baptized Pentecostal, AME, and Catholic, but now I'll go to Unity. And shout out to my Pentecostal uncles, Uncle Calvin, Uncle Stevie, cousin Bruce. So it's important that we understand that there's an awakening going on with the planet. A lot of people are coming into the same consciousness and we've got to come together and reckon with atone for the sins of the past in order for us to ascend to a higher place, for us to get to where God wants us to be. And we got to have folks like you to be able to talk about the history. Also, shout out to Dr. Victor Okafor from EMU. We have to have departments, Africology departments, to educate us about the wonders and beautiful contributions of Africa and Africans, and for us, Africans in America. We have made wonderful contributions here in this country, but this country is constantly giving us a slap in the face. And I mean, for the folks from January 6th to be able to do what they did and just be able to get away with it, that's another slap in the face. Like, while you and I see every day, Black and brown, working class white folk, people don't look the other way when they get in trouble. You got the system just stomps down on them so wrongfully. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, if you do wrong, you should have consequences, but I'm saying the system, to the point it goes so far. Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow talks about it, that people, they do the wrong, they do their sentencing, probation, and then they're still held back. They can't get jobs, they can't advance on their jobs. It's almost like it's a life sentence for some things that they did when they were young and brains not fully mature. And it's the system has to right itself. I think that equity just demands that. Attorney Taylor, you had something else to say?
Yeah, I had a client today, one of my frat brothers, remember Mega Psi Phi. Anyway, they called me. I didn't get notice. This guy, he had probation, and he wasn't in court yesterday. So he ended up in jail. Anyway, Judge Bruce called me, Bruce Morrow, and he called me, and one of my frat brothers told me they was calling the case.
Shout out to Judge Morrow, righteous judge. Not all the judges are righteous, so you got to, when you see a righteous judge, you got to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, but anyway, he sees my name on there, so he calls him. The guy's incarcerated, if he wouldn't have called me, that guy would have had to wait to 15th, June the 15th to get out. So anyway, I told him, I said, well, where were you, man? You got probation. What happened? This guy, because he has his daughter trying to get himself together, he was going down trying to take care of warrants, and his tether went dead. And so that they arrested him for that. And so that's why he wasn't for his sentencing the other day. So I didn't know where, yesterday, I didn't know where he was. And I said, this guy got a sweet idea where he is. And so sometimes people try to do the right things and then they get caught up. He was trying to clear himself up and looked like once he explained that to the authorities, they would have given him a break. But, you know, he got put in there and he would have been in there for the next 2 weeks, but not for Judge Morrow insisting on finding me and contacting me. So he calls me and said, you have a case. I said, I got a case. I said, what kind of case? Because I knew that I didn't think I had anything today, but you know, sometimes I forget. But anyway, he let the gentleman out and he was very appreciative, and so was I. And so it's good that, and also I want to shout out to my friend, brother Brent Crump. I'm very proud of him.
Shout out, Ben.
When a person does something wrong, you know, like they die or they get killed, wrongful death, the only way you can compensate is by money, and that's what's happening. And the people that that pay the money, once they get tired of paying money, people are going to have to start tightening up their game. And that's why I think George Floyd got such a big settlement.
His family, okay, because he's dead.
This is true. Yeah, very true.
Yeah, he's a martyr for the struggle.
But this guy stayed on him that long, looked like his humanity would have came back. It was like, I'm gonna do what I want to do. And many cops have that attitude, and that's the wrong kind of person. I think cops need to be more educated.
The righteous cops need to, for the audience, the righteous cops need to check the ones that are racist, KKK. They got to go. They need to be weeded out.
And they need to have a database. If a person does something wrong, it was a cop in Texas. He had gotten several people in jail. He was going around lying about them, having drugs and planting drugs on them. And in Tyler, Texas, and he ended up getting 7 years. They told him they wanted him to do 7 years, and the judge gave him 7 years probation. Now, all these people done went to jail because of this guy lying. I think he should have got some time too. That's enough punishment for him, probation. I didn't agree with that at all. And some of the judges give a person a second chance, and that's all okay, good too. But if you do something that's heinous, you're supposed to be representing the government, just like the guys that there's many soldiers, and you know, used to be, you would think these redneck Hicks was the one, this right-wing Ku Klux Klan doing all this crazy stuff. But the people that attacked on January 6th, most of them was professional. They were middle class, they had jobs and retired military. So it was more than just these right-wing kooks, QAnon, these kind of people. It was a middle class America for the most part, the majority of the people. White males, they're trying to make it a Antifa, a BLM, but we know who was there. And so was McCarthy, because he made a call to Trump, and Trump going to say, well, maybe you're not as upset about the election than they are. And the guy's living in a fantasy world. He know he lost, and no class whatsoever. He wouldn't even come to the thing and to the inauguration. And I can't believe they're taking this long to arrest him. I heard him on the call to the Prime Minister of Yukon. I want a favor though. This is how silly he is. Now, he's the president. He could have got Pompeo or somebody else to ask this. He's going to do it on an open mic for everybody to hear. This is how silly he was. And that was his voice. And he was trying to extort that guy. And everybody heard him.
The Ukraine,
yes.
Okay, well, Attorney Taylor, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come out and talk to us. Audience, stay tuned for Political Coffee. We're going to be starting up at 6:05 with Attorney Tracy Martin and myself, and we have a county commissioner that's going to be coming in, and I've shared it on my Facebook. So we've got Beverly Kendall Walker, candidate for the city. Oh, it's the city clerk of Detroit. She's challenging. So she's going to be challenging the Detroit city clerk who handled election returns in 2020. So stay tuned for that exciting show. Again, Attorney Taylor, as I said, you've had a background as a social worker, high school teacher, and now a lawyer. fighting for the little guy, doing criminal defense, landlord tenant expungements, social justice. You're also a commentator, historical griot. So I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us.
My pleasure.
And folks, you know, Attorney Taylor is on Facebook, Twitter. You know, you can follow him on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'll share that information with you, because he definitely is dropping the knowledge. And as I said, knowledge is power. So everybody be blessed. And Attorney Taylor, do you have anything else to add for the audience?
Only thing I would say, I believe that the kids have been cooped up all this time, and I think we should not have all these long summers off. I think, especially this year, I think the kids should maybe get a couple of weeks off and they need to get back in school, because we're getting behind. People in China and Russia and Europe or wherever, they are
ahead of us, speaking four languages. I lived in France.
Okay. They go to school.
Okay.
Now, Jalen Rose Academy, he got them going 9 to 5. Hopefully you can get a chance to interview him. I met him today, and he's trying to do, and that's what's going to happen to him, like Jalen and
shout out to Jalen Rose.
What's his name? LeBron and
LeBron
and the fraternities and the sororities and the different kind of organization. It's going to take a holistic approach. Everybody's got to be involved, because we're in a pretty bad situation at this time, and hopefully we will be able to pull through.
Okay, well, everybody be blessed. This has been an edition of Robin Legal with attorney Robin McCoy and attorney Ed Taylor. And everybody be blessed, stay safe, and remember, knowledge is power.
Adios.